Greetings guys and welcome to a new episode of Fizzle's Film Reviews. Today I'm going to be talking about the Happytime murders. Oh man, haven't we all wanted to see this Melissa McCarthy comedy? Oh boy. So anyways, the Happytime Murders, as you know, is a movie for adults that's got Muppets in it, and yes, it's the Hensen Alternative brand, so they are real Hensen puppets despite looking like cheap knockoffs that were designed in DeviantArt's character creating thing that some nobody made, and you just smash the randomizer button 10 times. So all of that aside, Happytime Murders isn't very good. I'm just gonna open with that. 2 out of 10, right off the bat, boom, done. And one of the big problems is this is probably one of the most frustrating comedies of all time, because I'm constantly thinking I could have made this concept infinitely more funny in half the time with none of that budget. So first of all, the casting is really bad. Melissa McCarthy is at her all-time worst here. She is painfully unfunny. She's constantly repeating jokes over and over again, which is supposed to be funny in and of itself, but they do that so many times. That's her character, is just say the same thing over and over and over. Plus it felt like she wrote part of the script, because there was this super feminist scene in there that came out of nowhere, where this dog puppet is using offensive language like bitch and bitches, which is actually a term that means female dogs, so it totally makes sense in the context of the character. But no, she beats the crap out of everyone and nearly kills this guy to teach him to speak a bit more respectfully about women. And it's sort of a dumb scene that goes on way too long. If it was like 30 seconds long, fine, it's a dumb little moment, but no, they really drag it out to try and make it a female empowerment thing. I don't get the casting of Melissa McCarthy. I heard they were going for Jamie Foxx, but they couldn't get him. But anyways, Melissa McCarthy here, it makes Mike and Molly look like Monty Python by comparison. McCarthy can't let a joke hang. Instead, she just keeps on rambling and rambling and rambling. She can never let a joke just play out. She has to fully explain it after making it. There's like no scenes with like just awkward silence. She just keeps talking. Which is a shame, because this movie, the premise is so awkward that 90% of the movie could just be awkward pauses and it would be the most hilarious thing ever. There's a scene where the joke is that McCarthy's character is high and she steals a line word for word from her partner. It's very similar to a joke used in Zoolander. However, the difference is that Zoolander repeated the line once and it had significant impact as the punchline came long after the setup. And that joke was an accident that turned out to be a funnier joke than this copy-pasted formula. The design behind the puppets are thoroughly bland and unimaginative, feeling like nothing more than a mockbuster rather than a heartfelt spinoff, which is simply unacceptable from the actual Hensen brand. This film basically feels like a rushed piece of low-energy trash marketed as a cartoon spin-off adult comedy film that is so obviously trying to cash in on the Sausage Party audience. The jokes are very hit or miss, which is unfortunate since the vast majority of them are miss. It feels a lot like Family Guy. If you've watched Family Guy in the past 8 to 10 years, you know exactly what you're getting into. Just expect that kind of delivery all the way through, where it doesn't stop. It's just relentless, and it's gonna give you a headache by the end of the movie. Even a goldfish with Alzheimer's would demand more substance behind the jokes in this movie. The film reminds me of B-movie in a weird way. The audience here is Jerry Seinfeld expecting this to be the funniest idea in history, only to be let down once they see the final product. This film could have worked, but unfortunately there's no effort put to bring the jokes to life, because it seems so funny on paper, but just the execution is lacking any style. It should be over the top, it should be in your face, it should be obnoxious. That would go well actually with the non-stop delivery. but it's just, it feels like you hired some ADHD guy to write your movie, but then gave him Adderall right before he was set to do it. I feel that the setup of this film was rather misguided, as I figured the film would attempt some world building whatsoever. I actually expected McCarthy to be the down and out cop who has to regain her respect through working with this puppet cop, and then she regains her humanity in some sort of Blade Runner type way, like a parody of Blade Runner in a way. There's a lot of potential there. It almost seems very obvious to anyone who's watched Blade Runner. No, they don't do that. They just kick the puppet cop around and like, oh, he's a puppet, so he's dumb, ha ha ha, and it's just so stupid. Every decision behind the making of this film feels hollow and transparent from people who don't actually watch enough films to realize how they've doomed their film right but from the start by casting such a motley crew of hacks who manage success despite sheer lack of talent. I highly doubt anyone with an IQ above their age said, hey, let's get Molly from Mike and Molly, she's so funny in that show. The simple matter is, it was a bunch of businessmen crunching numbers rather than trying to produce a product that aimed to earn money rather than scam a bunch of whales out of what little money they had to spare in this hilariously depressing economy. So anyways, our main character doesn't really have any personality. The movie starts out and I already instantly knew it was wrong, because they start out and they're playing the whole drama thing straight instead of going balls to the walls. LOL, this is so stupid. They play it straight. There's this whole oppression thing with the puppets that's really surface level. I don't think it was even just thrown there as an afterthought. I think this was actually intentional social commentary on this fictional species that is supposed to mirror Zootopia, but it lacked any of the charm or the comedy or the charisma of Zootopia whatsoever, and it didn't look good either, because as I said before, the characters look like they were designed in a few seconds. As for repetitive jokes, they call them a sock, like a dirty sock, over and over. They don't come up with a different insult each time, which would have been a lot more funny. The movie is highly predictable. There is a part where a person gets car bombed, and I literally plugged my ear right before it, even though the scene wasn't really setting it up, because the scene obviously was setting it up by trying to subvert your expectations, but it was so obvious. And that's not entirely problematic. That's not entirely awful in comedy to set something up. That's kind of a staple of comedy, that you set something up and you either subvert it or you go for it. It's just the way it's executed lacks any energy whatsoever. It's bizarre. It feels like all the filmmakers were stoned out of their mind while making this movie. It feels so lazy. It feels so... It's lacking any effort at any point whatsoever. What it needed was a little oomph. Actually, what it needed was as much oomph as possible. It needed to kick you in the ass, apparently. But it doesn't do that. It just lays back and smokes a fat blunt. This is definitely a dumb movie. Definitely kind of made to be dumb. Definitely doesn't go for so bad it's good. It plays itself too straight to go for that. It plays it way too safe for a movie like this, and it came across as just a knockoff Sausage Party, trying to bank off the ripple of that movie's success, essentially. And what it feels like is a product cobbled together by a bunch of middle-aged businessmen who are out of touch with society, essentially, and who don't know what people find funny. It totally misses the point, and I think you can figure that out just by looking at IMDb, essentially. I don't want to bring up reviews, I just bring up IMDb in particular, because people on IMDb seem to be really stupid and they seem to give good ratings to terrible movies on a regular basis. Whereas like a 5 on IMDb, which is about where this movie's at, is pretty much a 1 when it comes to me. Now, don't be fooled. I know I made fun of Hot Take last time, and I probably have that no bullshit video up by now anyways. I don't want to really make everything about Hot Take at this point, but he beat me to the punch and he recommended this movie, and people are actually watching his review and saying, man, I gotta see this. All the good jokes are in the trailer. It's one of those kinds of movies where there's a lot of dead air, a lot of nothing in between what they showed you in the trailer. The human characters don't really interact with the puppets so much, even. That seems like the selling point of the movie is to have humans and puppets interacting inappropriately. But the human characters sort of just feel out of place. They feel like they have nothing to do. Aside from Melissa McCarthy, but she's kind of an exception because she's not technically a human because she has a puppet liver. The whole emotional part of this movie didn't feel like it made sense whatsoever, but it didn't feel crazy enough. It wasn't stylized in a way where it was stupidly funny like you might get in your Team America World Police or something. Basically what happens is the main character accidentally misses a shot on a baddie and shoots an innocent man. Okay, spoiler right here. Leads to the daughter eventually becoming the villain once she grows up. End of spoiler right there. Boom, we can go back to the movie, whatever. Anyways, the headlines read, oh, puppet cop won't shoot another puppet. No, he missed, and he did shoot and kill an innocent puppet, so I don't know what they're saying about puppets refusing to kill other puppets. They clearly do, and I'm pretty sure this is a thing that happens considering they live essentially in the ghetto, living a life of crime for the most part. Essentially, they're like the stereotypical black ghetto community, the puppets I'm talking about here, or at least they're represented that way. There's a few gags that work here and there, but they come off as disappointing even when they do work. I won't say this is the worst movie ever. Again, I gave it a 2 out of 10, which is better than like dozens of movies that have come out this year. So we're gonna have a really interesting film roundup by the end of this year, guys. The jokes in this movie are highly predictable. They're mostly gags, rather. Yeah, you have puppets getting blown to pieces and like, oh, stuffing goes everywhere and people are like, oh, this is so gruesome. But the joke is there's no actual like R-rated violence in the whole movie. People do get killed, but it's not really that gruesome. When the puppets get killed, it's in extremely graphic, like Saw-esque type gore ways, but it's just like, oh, ha ha ha, you're not actually seeing any violence. 95% of the time, this movie actually felt like a PG movie, and then 5% of the time it felt like an 18A movie, which is kind of weird. And then once it got to the credits, like even the credits were so dull. They just generic porn music, and then you have all these really basic like porn title parodies with puppets instead of the people, I guess. Oh no, I said puppets instead of people. Did I not understand the message of this movie? Wow, I'm such a bigot. Oh yeah, I also didn't really like Maya Rudolph. She doesn't really do much in this movie. All she does is just kind of look stupid at the camera constantly. She's in a number of scenes, but she doesn't really do anything. As for the Hensen brand, I don't think they're gonna be attempting much of this in the future with how negative the reception was. I think they even got sued by Sesame Street for making a pun in the title, No Sesame, All Street, which is kind of funny. This feels like just a scam, this movie. It feels like it's going for the people who don't critically think about things. They just see a trailer for this and they say, I gotta waste the money on this. It's like Dirty Grandpa, where it's meant to be a garbage movie with no value whatsoever, that they just rush out and they get all your money while the kettle's hot. They strike while the kettle's hot. That's all they know. That's all they know how to do, and they did that well, but the movie itself isn't good. It's a cringe fest, to say the least. And when it's not cringy, it's boring. And no, weird doesn't equal energetic or creative. Weird is just weird. And when there's no energy behind it, it's even worse than mundane and unenergetic. As I said before, it just adds that disappointment factor. And don't waste your money on this. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm not gonna say don't watch it. I'm just gonna say don't waste your money on it. I didn't. I get my movies for free. Heck, if you have a friend who works at a movie theater, they can take you to it for free. So do that. Wink, wink. Oh, by the way, I'm open for commissions, you guys. You can pay me money to draw you anthropomorphic animal things, because that's what I specialize in. Man, I probably pissed off my whole target audience with that. With all those videos I did, didn't I? Oops.